we will kick off. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to my shul office here.
Thank you.
And I have Candice here with me. Candice, who I've known for quite some time, here in the Maroubra community, part of the Mount Sinai College community as well. And, you know, I think I know people in my community quite well, and where they come from. If I was to guess, I would say South Africa, and the majority, you know, I'd be correct for the majority.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of times that you don't know, you know, the people in your own community, and sometimes you'll see something, you'll hear something, and it'll really just give you quite a shock, or make you realize, hang on a second, you know, that there's a lot of really incredible people with, you know, who are very deep, who have very inspirational stories. And roughly 2 months ago, Candice posted on her Facebook an article that, quite a shocking article, which basically read that she was pronounced dead on the scene when she was 26 years old. So this is back in 25 years old on February in 2005.
Yes.
What was the exact date?
Was, I think, the 2nd of February 2005.
2nd of February
2nd or the
2005.
5th. I can't even remember now. It was a while back.
A while back.
It was either 2nd or the 5th of February.
And there was this whole write-up of how Candice had incredibly, miraculously survived this fatal surfing accident. And we're going to hear about that very, very soon from Candice. And so I'm very honored that she's agreed. She's left her family and her young kids in the capable hands of her husband.
Yep.
Let's hope he's doing a good job.
He always does a good job.
He always does a good job.
Better than me most of the time.
My wife wouldn't trust me, but I'm glad you trust your husband.
I trust him, implicitly.
Nice. So we really appreciate your time, Candice, and to give us this interview, which will it's here live on the Zoom for those who are watching, but it's also going to be, you know, this is recorded, this Zoom session. So it's going to also be in our newsletter, and maybe on my Facebook, your Facebook, we can share it, because I think maybe a lot of people will have quite a bit to gain. So anyway, getting into it, after this rather long welcome, Pesach, the Jewish festival of Passover, is coming up, and so Pesach is all about freedom. It's the festival of freedom. But if you think about it, you know, after 210 years of slavery, of bondage, the Jewish people were eventually taken out of Egypt. They were miraculously saved from Egypt. And they embarked on this long journey. It took them then 49 days to make their way to Sinai, where they received the Torah. They experienced the revelation at Sinai. And then they embarked on a 40-year journey throughout the desert until they arrived at the promised land. But essentially it was coming out of Egypt. It was this experience that we remember, that we recount, that we inspire our children by telling them these stories on Passover. This is what Passover is all about, Pesach. It's about inspiring them with this story. And to me, when I saw that Facebook post that you did of your story, and how you are a survivor, and actually coming close to Pesach, it just clicked with me. Like, Pesach is really all about survival. It's how we as a people survived after 210 years of slavery. And we're told that in Egypt, you know, it was a genocide against the Jewish people. I mean, Pharaoh came out with a decree to throw every single Jewish newborn boy into the Nile River and to drown them. And we also read in the Haggadah how the pain, the anguish, and the incredible oppression that the people were under. In fact, they took their own children, or the children were taken away from them and were kind of mixed into the cement and thrown into the pyramids that they were building. And so it really was a genocide. It was a trauma of our past. And so indeed, it's true to say that we are a nation of survivors. And and indeed, if you look throughout Jewish history, even recently, 75, 80 years ago, you know, with the Holocaust, and how we have survived, and miraculously only a few years after liberation in 1945, the state of Israel was born in 1948. And so indeed, you know, pain and suffering is not foreign to us as Jews. But neither is miracles as well. And we have witnessed many miracles in our past. So this idea of survival plus miracles is really something that is innate to the Jewish story. And the birth of that story is really on Passover. And so I want to stop there with that and just kind of now turn to you, Candice, and I'll kind of get back into maybe a few other ideas as we move through. Mm-hmm. But getting back to you, can you tell us a little bit about your background? Tell us your personal, where you were born, when you came to Australia, And a little bit about yourself to start off with.
Okay, so I was born in South Africa in 1978, lived there up until I finished school, and then I came to Australia and started a life in Australia, and have since got married and had 3 kids, and now bringing them up halakhically and Jewishly, as Jews and Mount Sinai, and and just kind of following on from the normal footsteps of Judaism and trying to give my kids the Jewish heritage and the Jewish history in the background.
And in terms of your Jewish upbringing, the values that you received from your parents, grandparents, do you have lots of memories of Passover and Pesach was like in your home? How what were the seders like? Was it a big family gathering? Were you guys involved in community in South Africa?
Yeah, that actually were some of my happiest memories. So it was before all the mass immigration in South Africa, and it was where we would always go to aunties and uncles' houses and we'd have masses of families and cousins and huge tables, and most of my memories are big, huge tables with all the uncles, the aunties, the cousins, and all the Passovers, and that's actually what I remember as a child. So obviously you try to do the same thing and instill the same feelings and the same great memories for my kids.
Yes, beautiful. And so you came here, and tell us, when did you get married?
So I actually got married in 2007, 1st of July 2007. My husband will kill me for that one. I met him in 2005, and I actually met him 2 months after the accident.
Wow.
Yeah. So and we've been together for this July we'll be married for 14 years, and we've been together for 16. And if it wasn't for me being saved from the accident, I wouldn't have met him, and I wouldn't have had 3 beautiful kids. So,
you wouldn't be around.
Exactly.
So getting now towards that fateful day, what did you say? Was it the 2nd of February?
2nd of February.
2005.
Yes.
You were 25 years old.
Yes.
Wow. And is surfing something that you always loved doing?
So I used to water ski back in South Africa quite a lot. We used to have a boat at the river and we used to water ski, and because of that I've always been a water baby. I've always loved water and wanted to do stuff around water, and I wanted to start surfing. So 6 months before that I started surfing. Got really into it, really loved it, went pretty much try to go every day. Within probably 3 months I think, or 6 months after I actually started surfing, I kind of went and enjoyed it. And and the day of the accident, I went, saw it was a really rough day, knew it was quite ominous, and had a bad feeling to not go in, and didn't listen to my senses. And didn't listen to that voice that tells you to beware and to not do what you're meant to do. And I went in, and
So one second, just pause for a second. So you said that particular day came about. So was it anything different about that day to any other day?
Yes, it
What
was.
was it?
So it was quite dull. It was quite a overcast day. It was a day after a really big storm. So the waves were quite unusually large. But I'm the type of person that has always enjoyed challenge and loves to test myself, and test my capabilities. So I thought, you know what, let me try, and if it gets bad, I'll come out. And I went in, and I ended up obviously not coming out, and coming out being saved.
So, and I assume your memories of that day, I don't know, I mean, maybe they're not all there.
No.
Right? So what's the last thing you remember on that day? You remember that you had a sixth sense was telling you not to go in? Do you remember actually going into the water?
I do. I remember going into the water, and I remember wading out and turning to catch a wave and getting caught in a rip. And as I got caught in a rip, a wave came and dumped me as I got caught in the rip. And it was quite a big wave. And once I got dumped, I actually got pulled under. And because I let go of my board, I was being turned as the waves were going over me. So when you're in a rip in that situation, and you can't feel where your board is, you can't actually tell which way is up, because as you're struggling, you're getting turned with the water and pulled different ways. And yeah, obviously, without realizing, I actually lost consciousness from struggling and ended up being found face down.
Do you have any, when you became unconscious?
Yes.
Did you feel anything or experience any sensation in that time, or was it blank?
It's actually interesting. It was a lot of calmness that came over me. When you actually drown and you lose consciousness in water and you lose air within your lungs, it's actually, as much as you're struggling, it's actually quite a calming feeling. That's what I do remember. At the time, obviously, you're in a panic. And then as soon as that, I think as you're going in, there was kind of a calmness and then obviously I lost consciousness.
Wow.
And that was it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what happened after that? So then you were found. You were discovered by the lifeguards?
Yes. Yep. So I was, it actually was a miracle in itself, because the lifeguards were not meant to be on duty. Well, they were on duty. There was one lifeguard in the tower, and the rest of them had gone to lunch, and a couple of other lifeguards were off duty because it was quite a overcast day. And the lifeguard in the tower is not supposed to leave the tower when they see someone in danger, because obviously they're supposed to be monitoring the beach. So it was almost God working in mysterious ways, because when they spotted me, two of the lifeguards had actually just arrived back with their lunch as he spotted me. And he said, I think there's somebody face down, you need to go. And they dropped their lunch and ran.
Wow.
And at the time, there were two off-duty lifeguards actually walking along the beach, and obviously spotted what was going on and came down and helped. And because I was a dead weight and I was quite heavy to pull out, and with the roughness of the sea and on that day, it took 8 of them to pull me out the water. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it was kind of God working in mysterious ways. There was just certain stars were aligned to actually get the right people there at the right time. Obviously, God had better plans for me. So,
Right.
yeah.
And I just remember, I remember those words in that article, pronounced dead on the scene.
Yes.
And so is that what happened? They pulled you out of the water and
Yeah.
you had no pulse?
Yeah, so basically they pulled me out of the water. I had no pulse. They used a defibrillator to restart my heart. When they took me, they obviously rushed me. I was completely unconscious. They had to cut everything off and put machines on me to test my heart and make sure it was beating. Even after they resuscitated me and my heart started beating again, I was not conscious at all. And when they brought me into the hospital and they transported me, my brain was at the level of a stroke patient. So the chances, because I was underwater for so long, the chances of recovery without brain damage were very high, because I think it's for every minute that you're underwater, that you're without air, you 10% closer to brain damage. So they pulled me out. When they pulled me into the hospital, there again, another miracle. As I was arriving at the hospital, in the ambulance, there was a machine called an inner machine being moved and transported from Randwick Hospital to St. Vincent's Hospital. It was the only machine that they had to cool stroke patients' body temperature to hypothermic level to try and bring their brain and their vital signs back. And they shared that machine. I think it was the only machine here, but all within Australia, there were three machines at all the different hospitals, and they were obviously being shared. And as I arrived, the machine was being stacked up onto the transport onto the thing to transport to the next hospital. And the ICU doctor, as they brought me in, ran outside and stopped the vehicles and said, look, don't send that machine. I have a feeling we can do something here. We could probably turn this around. My body temperature was at 42 degrees at the time. I had no brain activity. I still had tubes down my throat. My heart was beating, but they were using machines to help me. The head of the ICU ran out to get the machine. It's an intercool machine, which is a catheter that goes up your groin just before your heart, and it takes your blood out of your system and cools it to a hypothermic level, and then it repumps the blood back into your body. So what happened was, after that, my parents obviously had been chatting, and they knew that the chances, they didn't know what the chances were. My mother only found out the next day, the severity of it. But as they started using the machine, they brought my body temperature back, and my vital signs started coming back as they started cooling my body temperature. But the biggest miracle of the whole story is that they had only ever used that machine on really elderly patients or really young kids. The machine had never actually been used in middle age, younger women in that age group, and they'd actually never tried it. So the ICU doctor decided he wanted to give it a go, and my vital signs started coming back. I was still obviously in a coma. And after about 26 or 28 hours, I started being slowly brought out of the coma. I was in ICU for 3 days. And as I was coming out of the coma and ICU, I spoke to my family, and they were like, we're not sure how much brain capacity she's going to have because of being under the water for that period of time, and because of the fact that she had no brain activity. I pretty much started coming around after 26 hours. And pretty much the day my mom came in and we started, she asked me one question and I responded, and she said just by that question, she knew that was okay.
Wow. So there's a lot of little, I guess, if you look back, I mean, it was a miracle that, exactly the time when it happened on the beach.
Yes.
The lifeguards were there.
Yes.
And again, all these miracles you're describing, and now with this special machine, and the fact that the doctor decided to trial this machine instead of the trial on middle-aged women before,
Yes.
and all these things kind of stacked up, and voila, you came back.
Yes.
And without any damage at all.
Correct.
It's absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
Well, what beach was it that this all occurred at?
It was at Bondi.
Bondi, good old Bondi Beach.
Yeah, good old Bondi Beach. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. So,
Wow.
Yeah.
And in terms of the support that you received, obviously, so you woke up. How long were you in the intensive care unit for?
3 days.
3 days, and then after that?
After that, I was moved to a regular ward, and I was there for a week.
Right, and then after that, you were.
And after
sent
that,
home?
I was sent home. It took about 3 weeks to regain my short-term memory back, because when your body suffers a traumatic incident like that, it's almost the body's, the doctors were explaining to me that it's almost the body's mechanism of shutting some of it out and blocking out some of the short-term memory, so that you actually can cope and can get through what has happened. So that's basically what happened to me. I lost short-term memory for 3 weeks.
So what did you remember until what point in those 3 weeks?
So probably in the second week, I knew what had happened because my family kept telling me, but they kept on having to repeat it over and over, because I kept asking what day it was, I guess what time it is, where was I, where am I, do I live by myself, all of these sorts of questions, because at the time I was actually living by myself. So I lost a lot of that short-term memory over a period, and after about 2 weeks, it slowly started coming back to me.
Right.
Yeah.
And you mentioned trauma. going through such a horrific accident, in terms of like ongoing after that, I guess in the short term or the first 6 months and then year and maybe even lasting longer, until today, did you need to have extra support, to speak to people? Did you need?
Well, yeah, I mean, I've never actually felt the need to speak about it because at the time, obviously, I had a lot of love and a lot of support and a lot of friends and a lot of family around me, so which helped me get through. There were a few other issues that happened being pulled out, so there's damaged tissue in my bicep, obviously from them, the lifeguards grabbing me and pulling me out. So yeah, there's this, and obviously when they put the pipe down my throat and I had a pipe in, to straighten my vocal cords. So there's those few things, but really that pale in comparison. It's given me an incredible life, an incredible family, incredible kids, and it's just, I'm really thankful that we are a nation of survivors and God actually put the right people in my path to bring me back, and basically help me live my best life. So I'm just really lucky.
And how much did you draw on your upbringing that we touched on beforehand, your values, your Jewish values?
Yeah.
The theme of this is we are a nation of survivors, and the link is to Pesach. Passover is all about that story and how we actually overcame a trauma.
Yes.
After 210 years of slavery, and like we mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Like, do you feel like you drew on any of that ancient wisdom, or you had anything special in your blood, being that every year we retell that story? We have those messages of resilience, of courage, of shaking off the dust, standing up and moving on. Like, did that help you in any way moving forward, or not? Or was it just something that you innately knew you had to do? You had to move on. What do you put it down to?
I do feel that some of that fighting spirit definitely came through, in that resilience, and that you can get through this, you can move on, and you can get over it. I've always had a fighting spirit. I don't know if that's because I'm Jewish or that's just because I'm me, but I've always had that push mentality, and that loves challenges and wants to keep going, and yeah, I mean the biggest thing it's taught me is to really live for each moment, because you don't really know when it's your last, and things can happen when you least expect it, but then amazing things can happen too when you least expect it. So I believe that God works in mysterious ways, and I feel like by having the faith I do and being Jewish, I almost believe in the spirituality that there were certain things put in my path to make sure that I came back. And I do believe that in a way, the fact that we're a nation of survivors, there has been a lot of that has been put in Jewish people's paths to obviously fight and to come back stronger and better and more powerful. So yes.
Perhaps it was, again, it's not for us to postulate why things happen. And I think often as a rabbi, people come to me, they want to know why. Why me?
Yes.
What am I supposed to learn from this?
Yes.
All those questions, which is incredibly hard for me to answer because I'm not God, right? I don't know. Did you feel like, having survived this accident, like you have a special calling now in life? What did you take away from it?
Not really, but I guess I find it hard when people ask, why me? Because why not me? Why not give me the experience to teach me that I can overcome things, and that things get thrown in your path all the time, and that's a way of actually showing that you can overcome difficulty and adversity, and there are things that get thrown at you all the time. And I find, yes, at the time when you're going through something that's really terrible or really devastating, same thing like when I lost my father, you always question, why me? But there's a lot that is gained, and that's learned from that when it actually happens to you. At the time when it's happening to you, it's devastating. You can't seem to make sense of it. But when time passes and that comes to fruition, you understand why it was you, not why it wasn't you.
So looking back now, all those years ago, now looking back, do you feel that since then there have been other dots that have been joined as a result or as a consequence of that incident, or because you've built up that resilience, that strength, that courage, those life lessons, those values, because of that you're able, looking back, that you're able to actually go to a place that you weren't able to go to before?
Not really. I almost think things were put in my path to bring me back. I wasn't meant to go, and I think that that's really, for me, the essence of it. I was meant to be here for other reasons and other lessons I had to learn, and that's why it happened to me. I don't know why. I still don't. I know certain reasons why it happened to me, because it's given me other things that probably has given me more of a fighting spirit and made me stronger and made me more resilient. But at the same time, it's taught me a lot.
Yeah. And maybe linking that now to, I mean, Pesach is the festival of freedom.
Yeah.
Now just kind of merge into that topic called freedom.
Yes.
And I want to ask you in a moment, what is freedom to you? Like, did this somehow unlock, a new perspective? I mean, you mentioned before, you never know when things happen to you in life. You have to appreciate every single day. These are things that you've taken away.
Yes.
And perhaps there's an element of freedom in that. I think so many of us, we go through life, and every single day we're all so busy and we have so many pressures, and we allow, so many things to get into our mind specifically.
Yes.
And our mind is extremely powerful.
Yes.
But often our mind kind of blocks our emotion. And, emotion is life. It's the feeling, it's the experience of life. But sometimes we allow our minds to stress ourselves out, and kind of, we're all just so busy, and it's, and so it kind of robs us of truly experiencing and appreciating, even the fine moments of life. So on one hand, I would say that perhaps we're all slaves. So we have this slave mentality to all the external pressures from what we see on Facebook, in social media, in the news, the TV. Like I found during COVID, when the TV was on in the home, and I heard the news and all this negativity, like it started to make me anxious.
Yes.
I kind of felt like I just need to turn it off, because as long as everything's going on, I feel like it's controlling me.
Yes.
I'm a slave to it, and I need to be free. And so I guess merging onto this idea of freedom, I mean, for me, freedom it's not just about what it's not. So, if you think of freedom, you may say, freedom is not slavery. It's not when you're being controlled, inhibitions.
Yeah.
But, to define exactly what freedom is, I would also say that freedom is not really just abundance. And you can have so many different things and luxuries, but yet does that mean that you're really free? It may not. In fact, I had an experience recently when I was away for a few days. My wife and I went away, and in the hotel, I gave us like 10 different little mini packets of cereal. And it was like amazing. There's so many choices, but yet I found like 10 minutes I was trying to decide which one should I have.
Yeah.
And then even after I chose the one cereal, I was eating it, I was like, did I choose the right one? Maybe I should have a different one. It's almost like sometimes like there can be so many choices that we have, which can also kind of stifle us, because then we feel bad and we choose the right one. And sometimes when you have less choice, perhaps it frees you more, because there's only two to choose from. So I choose one, I can be happy, and then I can move on.
Yeah.
It's almost like there's people who are, watching Netflix or whatever. They scroll for like half an hour. They're scrolling through the different movies and watching little trailers, and then a half an hour they actually haven't seen anything.
Yeah.
So it's like almost the abundance of choice we have. Does that actually, in a way, that doesn't necessarily mean we have and can truly experience freedom just because we have abundance, or so to speak, freedom to live as we choose. I mean, to me, freedom, maybe freedom is more of, the way I experience or see freedom is that you have the capacity to choose what you will commit to. To me, perhaps that's maybe a better definition of freedom. You have the ability to choose what you're committing yourself to, or to whom you're committing yourself to.
Yeah.
In other words, it's a life of service. And it's interesting because if you look at the relationship that Moses and Paro, Moshe and Pharaoh had, Moshe didn't say to Pharaoh, let my people go, and that was it. It's not just, we want a life of abundance. We want to go out to the desert and do whatever the hell we want. That was not what he said. He said, Shalach et ami, let my people go, v'ya'avduni, so they can serve me. He was repeating the words of God. Hashem wanted the people to go so they could serve him. In other words, that they should be free to commit to him, to living a life of service to others, to a cause. You have the ability to choose who or to what you are committing yourself to. That is freedom that you can now choose. And you can let go of everything else, letting go. And Nelson Mandela, famously, there's in his book, The Long Walk to Freedom, in his introduction, he relates this incredible incident where he's walking out after all those years in prison. He's finally walking out of those doors, out of those gates. And as he's approaching those gates, he sees those guards who had imprisoned him and had made him suffer for so many years. And he said to himself, if I walk out those doors and I hate them, then they are still controlling me. I have to let go. And so he told himself that when I walk out those doors, I'm going to forgive them. I'm going to let go. And he made that decision. He walked out. And then he said, that's when I was truly free. Yeah. And so I want to, I guess, bring that forward, this perspective of freedom. It's not just about living a life of abundance, but it's about committing oneself. It's about perhaps letting go of certain things that have happened to us, certain grievances that we've had, certain foibles or arguments we've had with people. Sometimes, it's holding on to those that enslave us or inhibit us or restrict us or give us more stress than if we can let those things go. And so, you mentioned before about, appreciating every single day, which to me, that's a liberating perspective, because it means that we have the ability to choose what we're focusing on, who we're committing to. It's about where we're committing to those smaller moments, to finding the beauty within those small moments that exist every single day, and not just being caught up in the way of being controlled by everything that's happening to us, or by everything that even our mind tells us is constantly surrounding us. It's peering deeper and getting to that deep emotional level. Yeah. So, turning back to you, and the lessons that you've learned, and perhaps the freedom that maybe this incident has given you. It's allowed you to have this shift in perspective. Mm-hmm. Is there anything else that you feel you perhaps have been called on before to share in front of audiences or to family members or friends who have asked you, who know you and have asked about this incident? Have you seen anything, or has this incident allowed you to have any particular insight you can share to help others in their personal journey?
Yes. Well, after this incident happened to me, probably about a month later, another 25-year-old girl who was a lawyer, the same thing happened.
Really?
She was under for longer. The same ICU doctor, her mother said to him, if you don't bring her back within 24 hours, don't bring her back at all. And after 24 hours, she came back. We then both went and spoke at an event, and we, since then, the ICU doctor asked us to speak at an event, and we raised a significant amount of money to purchase new machinery that can then go and save other people's lives and put them in different hospitals. So it gave me perspective in the fact that when something like this happens, instead of just internalizing it and you can help, you can do things that can help others, and that can, I guess, give other people and other families the benefit of what I received. And yes, I mean, just, I've spoken at events, we've raised money to get the machines, and I look at life very differently. I guess in every little hard moment, there's always a positive moment, and there's always a positive perspective, and there's always a positive take on it. So I'm not sure if that's answered your question. Do you find you can
tap into that? Because obviously, things happen, especially raising kids, things, you can obviously lose yourself, and you can, it may be hard to remember that all the time. Like, do you find it easier because you have this incident that you can tap into that perspective of, okay, it's all right, let go, find the beauty within? Or do you also find it challenging and you remind yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I've got 3 young kids. It's always challenging, and they are challenging. But I do find beauty in the moments, because the things that I've watched that they're having difficulty with now, I know is going to pass, because everything passes and things change and they never stay the same. And there's beauty in those moments, because as difficult as they are, they also learn, and you watching how they learn, and you gaining, enjoyment and love and from that, and that's all worth it. So yeah, I mean, in every negative moment, there's always a positive one. So yes, I mean, of course, I'm stressed and I go nuts at my kids like anyone else does, and I don't always draw on my experience and go, well, this happened to me, let me make a positive moment out of it. A lot of the times I forget it, but there's been certain incidents that really make me look and laugh and how lucky I am. Like, I went to a park quite a few months ago, and one of the main lifeguards who saved my life had his own kids. And he was actually going through quite a difficult time, and I was at the park with my kids, and my oldest child walked up to him and said, "Thanks for saving my mum."
Wow.
And he burst into tears because he could not believe he had never met my kids, he had never seen my kids, and he thought, wow, this is what we do it for. So there's real blessings in those moments.
That's so beautiful. What a beautiful story that.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And so you said 2 months later, you met your husband?
Yes.
So what was the circumstances around that?
So actually, the interesting thing is he was walking on the beach when that happened. He was walking and he saw the whole thing on the beach. He saw the ambulance. He didn't know who it was. Saw the ambulance, was walking with a friend and said, "Crazy, that person's never going to survive." And they carried on walking and obviously stood and watched and then left. And I ended up doing a current affair program. About a month after that, and I met him a month later, and when he met me, he said to me, "You look really familiar. What's your name?" And I told him, and he then mentioned it to people he knew and his family, and he said, "Do you know this girl?" And they lived next door, other tenants, which were my maiden name, and and it just so happened that all came to fruition, and we ended up going out, and he found out the story, what had happened to me, and he realized that he was on the beach the same day, the rest is history. So it's almost like those little moments were orchestrated to bring us together. Yeah.
Wow. So, and you mentioned you were on a current affair.
Yeah.
How soon after the accident were you on a current affair?
I don't remember that. I don't think it was very long afterwards. It was also, I did it to try and raise money for charity. So what I did was I held a party for the lifeguards, and we charged people entry to get into the party, and the whole current affair thing was around that and the survival. I don't remember how it came about, but it was the whole story that went up to current affair. It's quite a while back that I struggle to recall the whole memory of it.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you had a period of time where you didn't speak about your story? Was there?
No, I've always been okay.
Have you always spoken about it?
I've always spoken openly about it. I mean, people, obviously, because a lot of people knew me, a lot when it came out. Yeah, I mean, I got so many messages that my voicemail actually couldn't take any more messages. After the first few weeks, and I got constant calls and people coming around to visit. So I guess I almost rehashed the story thousands and thousands of times. And
yes.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm happy to talk about the story if anyone wants to ask me. And interestingly enough, the reason why I posted it was because my daughter, we went to meet friends and we were sitting on Bondi Beach, and my daughter looked at the waves and she said to me, "Mom," she goes, "were these the waves? Were the waves this big when your accident happened, and can we find the story and see it?" And she actually searched it up and she found it. And I hadn't been able to find it for quite a while. And she said, "Oh, Mom, you should post it. It's such an amazing story. Like, you're here to tell the tale. You should post it." And that's actually what made me post it. And I had no idea the response it would get, because I thought most people knew the story anyway. So,
did you get an overwhelming response to it?
Really?
So obviously it's been a while, and a lot of people who have more recently come to know you didn't know this whole history and your past and this story.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the thing. I thought that everybody knew, but I've realized that I've met so many new people since that they had no idea of the past and what had happened.
Wow. So do you find it's important to retell your story?
And not unless people ask me, really. I mean, I don't feel the need to rehash it unless people ask me or want to talk about it, or want to ask me about surviving and what it's done for me. And But yeah, not really.
Okay, wow. And I guess, we've been speaking for just over 40 minutes.
Yeah.
And I want to open up to if anybody does have questions. But I just want to say how what an honor it is to be able to speak with you, and thank you for sharing your story. I'm sure, I know it involves a lot of courage.
Yeah.
Because, recalling, difficult times and tragedy and trauma, which that was, had been pronounced dead, being dead, and then coming back to life, is traumatic, and you've been through that, and to be able to have the courage to speak openly about it and be vulnerable, it's inspiring and it's courageous, and I thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I'm hoping that whoever's watching and whoever will see this interview afterwards will gain inspiration and strength from just the strength of character that you have and your inner resilience, that you can actually experience some of this and still move on. And again, getting back to Pesach, one of the reasons we go into the details and we try and go through the Haggadah, there are 14 or 15 steps that we go to, and we try and actually involve the children into it, because from a young age we want the children to be inspired, to understand that life isn't always easy, and often there will be trauma, there will be setback, tragedies will happen, but yet the story of our people, we're made, we were born out of tragedy, and yet we were still able to retell the story, and which I think is step number one, to be able to talk about it. When you've experienced something traumatic, the freedom of being able to talk, and then being able to actually get up and move on and live your life in an exemplary way that then teaches others through the way that you live. So I think that is in essence the Jewish message. That's what Pesach is all about. Every year we rehash the story in the hope that it will inspire not only ourselves, but our children, and that so when they grow, they'll be able to take these values of strength, of courage, of a life of service, of commitment, of resilience, and be able to live with it every single day of their lives, and experience, as you said so beautifully, find the beauty within every single moment. Because that's what Judaism is all about. It's a commentary on respecting each other. And when we do so, when we can live in harmony with each other and with ourselves and be at peace, and we can experience truly the majesty within every moment of life. And so I see that in your story, and I thank you for sharing it with us.
Thank you. And thank you for asking me. It's an honor to sit with you and to chat with you and to tell my story. So
beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you. The pleasure's mine. It's a pleasure for us to listen to you. All right. Does anyone have any questions? Turning to our Zoom screen, we have also Esther. If you want a question, you can raise your hand. But anybody here on the Zoom who would like to ask a question, actually there is a chat.
Candice, have you gone surfing again after that?
I actually we actually recently went to Terrigal, and I tried to take my 10-year-old daughter out to surf. So I've tried, she wasn't that keen. She was a bit scared, I think, based on the story that had happened to me. She wasn't confident. But I did, I've taken a board out and I've tried to. I want her to start surfing, so I've actually said to her, let's go and book in a lesson and the two of us go and surf, because probably the biggest mistake was that I went on my own, and the one key rule of surfing is you always go, especially if you're a novice surfer, which I was, you always go with someone, so that if you're missing or something happens, there's always someone there that can alert you. So I kind of want to do it with my daughter to show her that you overcome fears and you keep doing the stuff that you're afraid of and that you feel like you can't do, because that's the way of moving forward when you're
right. Thank you. Well done.
Great question, Pam. Thank you. Good question.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions I'd like to ask Candice? Yaakov here. Actually, Yaakov is with us.
I always have questions.
What's your question, Yaakov?
With your respect, when you went blank after the accident occurred, and obviously it was a period of time which you didn't say how long it was, but when you came out of it, I know it sounds a bit like a cliche, but did you see a light at the end of the tunnel?
No. So everyone actually has, that's a common question I get asked very regularly. And I didn't see a light. The one thing when I was coming out of my coma and I was being questioned, I actually repeated my mother's phone number when I was still in a coma, and they were slowly bringing me out of it. And there again, it's a very calming feeling, because when you are in a coma and you're slowly coming out of a coma, you can feel the love and the warmth around you, but you can't actually physically respond. So you can't talk, and that's where I feel spirituality really comes into play, because it's almost like I felt the warmth and the energy and the love in the room, and that they were kind of willing me to come back, but I couldn't really respond or talk. I didn't see any light, no. And when I spoke to the doctor about that afterwards, the doctor said to me, well, I think it's got a lot to do with the people that are meant to cross over and don't see a light, and you obviously weren't meant to go. So that's why you didn't see the light. So the doctor who saved me was really, he's great. And I mean, I often bump into him and he sees me, and I mean, it's incredible, because what do you say to somebody who saved your life, pretty much? So
was it in Randwick or St. Vincent?
He's the head of ICU in Randwick. His name is Dr. Yaya Shahabi. So